Believe it or not, there is a land far more mysterious than any you will find in the pages of a fantasy novel or flashed up on a cinema screen. A place where countless heroes have strapped on countless suits of armor to vanquish terrible foes. Where strange and inexplicable events have been happening for centuries untold. And where enigmatic structures pepper the landscape, as numerous as mobile phone masts. What is more, I'm certain you are already well acquainted with this legendary realm. Doubtful? Don't be. Though this remarkable place has undergone several name changes during its long and turbulent history, today it is known throughout the world as Britain. Welcome to Mystery Island. The majority of ghosts have been dead far longer than they were ever alive, but just how long can their manifestations survive? While several hundred years seems to be commonplace, that is barely middle-aged by spectral standards. Cranbourne Chase, a landscape peppered with ancient burial mounds and earthworks, is a fitting home to what is perhaps Britain's oldest spook. The rolling countryside just east of the Dorset village of Sixpenny Handley is the regular haunt of a ghostly horseman whose origins go back millennia rather than mere centuries. The Phantom Horseman of Bottlebush Down, or Bottlebrush in some versions, is said to appear most frequently around dusk on a stretch of the B3081 road, close to where it intersects the remains of an old Roman road. In the late 1920s, a local archaeologist, Dr. Richard Clay, was driving home from a dig in the twilight of a winter's evening when he suddenly became aware of a man on horseback riding beside him and keeping pace with his car. To his astonishment, he realized the man was bare-legged, was wearing a short tunic and had a long cloak billowing behind him. More surprising still, the man was riding without stirrups and was brandishing a weapon the doctor was unable to identify in the failing light. The strange horseman followed the doctor for a short distance before abruptly disappearing. Understandably shocked, Clay decided to return to that exact spot the next day and was surprised to find an ancient burial mound he had been completely unaware of. He came to the conclusion, doubtless based on his expertise as an archaeologist, that what he had witnessed was a ghostly manifestation of a Bronze Age rider, and that, in all likelihood, the mound was the man's final resting place. Clay later made inquiries among the local villagers and soon found he was far from alone in encountering this antiquated apparition. Several local shepherds and villagers also admitted to sightings of their own. What was more, two young women who had been cycling from Sixpenny Handley to a dance at nearby Cranbourne had been alarmed by a strange horseman who had shadowed them along the same stretch of road. Clearly shaken by the experience, they reported the matter to the local police. Their description of the sinister rider tallied closely with that of Dr. Clay. And so there we have it, a very strong contender for the title of Britain's oldest ghost. What is more, it seems his restless spirit shows no signs of fading away. As recently as 2007, a local man driving home from Portsmouth claimed an encounter with the senior spectre, one that was eerily similar to Clay's experience 80 years before. A towering 14th century French-style castle might look a little odd as the centerpiece of a small Somerset village, but the picturesque ruins aren't the only thing out of place at Nunney. The most famous ghost here isn't the expected knight in shining armor. Rather surprisingly, it appears in the form of a middle-aged gent wearing a sports jacket and flannel trousers. Nunney's casually dressed spectre is often seen standing in the lane leading up to the castle, though he has also been known to appear on Gibbet Hill Lane, a back road connecting Nunney to the neighbouring town of Frome. It seems he is trying to hitch a lift to Crathes, but motorists who have pulled alongside often find he has disappeared before they have chance to oblige. The few drivers who have actually taken the thumbing phantom on board are shocked to find their passenger has vanished by the time they reach their destination. Strangely, for such a small village, nobody has ever been able to identify the ghostly traveller who never finishes his journey. Two other ghosts who call Nunney Castle home are perhaps a little more in keeping with their surroundings. A grey lady is said to appear beside the castle moat at dawn, though her identity is uncertain. It is possible she is Julian Cox, a local woman who was accused of witchcraft and later executed in Taunton during the infamous Somerset witch trials of the 17th century. A black horseman has also been seen riding up Nunney's main street before turning into the lane leading up to the castle. Once again, the phantom's identity is uncertain, but the most likely theory is that he is Richard Prater, owner and unsuccessful defender of the castle during the Civil War siege of 1645. Two ghosts are said to haunt Crathes Castle in Aberdeenshire, the ancestral home of the Burnets of Leys, and quite remarkably, one of them not only predates this 16th century tower house, but also is indirectly responsible for its construction in the first place. Lady Agnes Burnet, widow of the old laird, had plans for her son Alexander to marry into the cream of Scottish nobility. Unfortunately, these were placed in serious jeopardy when the young man fell in love with a low-born relative named Bertha. Refusing to see her ambitions thwarted, Agnes jumped at the opportunity to reignite them when the girl stayed with her while Alexander was away for the night. During the course of a meal together, she slipped a fatal dose of poison into the girl's drink. Bertha's revenge was swift and final. When her father arrived to collect her a few days later, her ghostly form materialized in front of Lady Agnes, who screamed in terror and promptly collapsed on the spot, literally scared to death. When Alexander himself arrived home shortly after, he was so distraught that he vowed to build a new home for the family. The Burnets' original stronghold was a wooden fortress built on a crannog, a man-made island protected by treacherous marshland. Alexander decided to build a much grander home on more solid ground, just a short distance away, the present-day Crathes Castle. Clearly still restless, however, Bertha's spectre has been seen on the anniversary of her death gliding from the site of the old fortress to its more elaborate successor. Some believe, however, that the phantom woman is none other than the wretched Lady Agnes herself. Perhaps more famous is another female apparition known as the Green Lady, though her identity is uncertain. It is thought that she was the daughter of a former laird who, having had an affair with a lowly stable lad, gave birth to a baby. The laird was infuriated, and it seemed hardly a coincidence when the girl and her child disappeared soon after, never to be seen again. At least that is how it appeared until the sorrowful apparition of a young woman in green, a baby in her arms, began to appear in the room now named after her. This particular ghost has been seen on numerous occasions, usually culminating in its disappearance into the fireplace. Witnesses were initially at a loss to explain this unusual behavior until, in the mid-19th century, workmen renovating the fireplace lifted the hearthstone to reveal the skeletal remains of a small baby. None other than Queen Victoria herself claimed to have been confronted by the glowing green spectre, and encounters continue even up to the present day. Long before extortionate petrol prices made travelling a very costly business, Lady Catherine Ferrers was doing her bit to empty the wallets of unfortunate road users. Trapped in a loveless, childless marriage, she craved an escape from the otherwise tedious existence of a mid-17th century noblewoman. She found it in a way that would shock even today's free-spirited aristocrats. Wearing a black mask and men's clothing, she embarked on a clandestine career as a highwayman. Via a secret stairway installed at her home, Marcute Cell in Hertfordshire, Lady Catherine would steal away in the dead of night to relieve unfortunate travellers their valuables as they passed along nearby Watling Street. Riding a huge black horse, she joined forces with a local farmer whose own motives were monetary gain rather than excitement. All went well until one night, while operating alone, he was overpowered and captured. An appointment with the gallows soon followed, a fate which awaited most highwaymen who fell foul of the law. Undaunted, Lady Catherine resumed her exploits alone and continued to ride her luck. Almost inevitably, it bucked once too often. While holding up a coach at pistol point on No Man's Land Common, she allowed her attention to slip just long enough for the guard to snatch up his own weapon and fire off a shot. It hit the would-be robber in the chest, but the badly wounded noblewoman managed to cling to her horse and speed back to the safety of Marcute. Unfortunately, her loss of blood was too great. She expired beside the doorway to the secret stairway, where she was discovered the following morning by a servant. It perhaps comes as no surprise that Lady Catherine's spirit seems to be just as restless as her earthly body. The ghostly highwaywoman has been seen galloping on a jet-black horse beside the drive to Markyate Cell, and also in the vicinity of No Man's Land Common, where she received her fatal wound. She was also seen by a visiting bishop in the grounds of her former home, where her appearance was described as having given him the fright of his life. One former owner of Markyate even claimed to have seen her several times on the staircase of the house itself. On the 23rd of October 1642, the armies of King and Parliament clashed at Edgehill, Warwickshire, in what was the first pitched battle of the English Civil War. Almost 2,000 men perished as Charles I failed to put down the rebellious Roundheads under Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex. Inconclusive though it was, the two armies decided to refight the battle only 2 months later. Or so it appeared. A group of shepherds and travellers in the vicinity of Edgehill the following Christmas Eve suddenly found themselves surrounded by the ear-splitting din of cannon fire, galloping horses, gunshots, and drumbeats. Terrified by what they heard, the group were on the point of fleeing the scene when two phantom armies began to materialize before their very eyes, the standards of King and Parliament clearly visible amongst the massed ranks. Now paralyzed by fear, unwilling witnesses watched as the spectral soldiery engaged in deadly combat for the better part of 3 hours. Incredibly, the entire spectacle was repeated the following evening. This time the witnesses included the local magistrate, vicar, and numerous villagers who had all turned out in eager anticipation. In fact, there were several further performances over the ensuing weeks, until word of the fantastical displays reached the ears of the king himself. Probably in disbelief, he dispatched 6 of his trusted officers to verify the incredible stories he had been hearing, several of whom had actually been involved in the battle itself. Almost on cue, the battle was refought yet again. This time, the king's men were able to identify many of the combatants, including Sir Edmund Verney, who had died valiantly defending the royal standard, and Prince Rupert, the royalist commander, who was still very much alive. It is many years now since the full Phantom Spectacular was last played out in all its glory. Ironically, much of the battlefield is now in the hands of the Ministry of Defence. Just occasionally, though, something will be glimpsed or heard in the surrounding countryside that awakens memories of that bloody late October day over 380 years ago. And still to this day, it is the only ghostly manifestation to be officially acknowledged by the British Public Records Office. And that's all for episode 2 of Mystery Island. If you've enjoyed this exploration of Britain's ghostly heritage, please do subscribe and click on the like button. There's a great deal more to come. Next time we'll visit an ancient site where a local legend came very much to life, and call in at a stately home where some of its residents are far more dangerous than its ghosts. Mystery Island. There's nowhere quite like it.